How y'all doing? Welcome back, everyone. Look, the reason why the University of Houston men's basketball lost the national title game against Florida is because a number of things. Okay, I'm a little late on the video, but that really doesn't matter. But this is the real reason why they lost. Okay, let's start off with the score. The score was, you know, 10, 12 point lead, opening, let's say, all the way above 10 minutes left in the game. Okay. And then Florida start doing what they do coming back. Okay. We can't really stop the coming back part. But part of their coming back part had a lot to do with the referees. The referees called fouls that were favored bias and affect the rhythm, the flow of the game. For an example, one of the controversy calls that stopped the rhythm of the game and pretty much gave Florida free throws that they made was when this is funny, right? When one of the players, I think it was Sharp, accidentally stepped on, right, the back of a Florida State guard's foot. It was an accident. And even if it wasn't an accident, the point is feet touch each other all the time. That's not a foul. If your foot touches another player's foot, that is not a foul. But they called it a foul. That was no contact at all. Just clearly it touched his foot, basically. And he held his hands up as if he was trying to avoid fouling him, and they called the foul. That was one instance. Another instance was it was another foul that was also controversial. There was really no foul, and they called it, and they knocked down the free throws, which was bringing them back into the game, which was chipping away at the lead. Now, that was one of the reasons why Houston lost. But when it was all up to Houston, this is another thing that happened. Now, if y'all can recall from the game that Houston played against Duke, okay? Remember when Houston was down and Duke was up, I think, 6 points, and there was like 30 seconds left? Kevin Sumlin, coacher, he didn't call timeout. Everybody wanted to know why he didn't call the timeout. And he said, what did he say? Just play it through. We were only down 2 possessions, and we could easily, if we can come down and score, we would be down 1 possession, but don't foul, because then that would give them the opportunity to go up 3 possessions, and that would make it worse. Well, that was the strategy, and so he let them play it through. And knowing their defense, they would be able to get a stop and bring the game closer. And that worked. They won. Well, the game against Florida was different. Those last seconds, and they were up, and then, or whatever, and then they slowly came into becoming or falling behind. What did Kevin do? He went against his own philosophy, which he used against Duke. What did he do? He called 2 timeouts within the last minute. I think it was 1 minute and 16 seconds left. He called a timeout. And then after that, I think there was maybe like 45 seconds left. He called another timeout. Clearly, and it was only within 1 possession, or maybe even 2. I think it was 1 or 2 possessions. And he did exactly the opposite. So what do you call that in football when you call a timeout against the opposing team that's trying to kick a field goal? It's called icing the kicker. Well, in turn, I understand the disruption of the flow of the game with the referees calling false fouls that allowed them to come back and get back into the game and, in fact, probably go up. Well, Kevin helped the refs, when he called timeout for his own team when they was only down one possession, maybe even two, but I think it was one because they ended up losing by 2 points. So they was really down one. There was no need for timeout. He went against his own philosophy, and his players got off rhythm, caused them to make those final mistakes. He iced his own players. Now, he didn't intentionally do it. It was just done out of emotion, or like, he got thrown off. He wouldn't have normally done that. And so basically the other reason why is because he iced his players. His players would have got in rhythm. If they knew they was down by 1 point or one possession and they had to play it out, they were going to find a way to score. You could believe that. With no timeouts, they were going to find a way to score. They was going to drive it in, kick it back out for a three-pointer to sharper someone. It would have been an open shot. That was the point. They didn't have the opportunity to get an open shot because they were iced. And that gave the defense time to put more pressure on the offense. And that's the real reason. And I know when you're in the game, emotions are flying and you can't really see it from outside the box because you're in the game in the moment, and it's hard to see it and make that decision. Well, that's what happened. That's what we clearly saw. So, but yet in all, okay, it was very disappointing to lose by 2 points, but that is a learning point that was noted, and moving forward, that will help them. And they had a good season overall. Like, they hadn't made it to a national title game in, I don't know, 20 years or so, maybe even longer. So that was a huge accomplishment for the University of Houston men's basketball. So congratulations to their accomplishment. But it was disappointing because they got so far and didn't win the national title, which the history of the school has never won a national title. And so that would have solidified it. But I will say there is upside and positive potential for them to get right back there this next season and win it all. Because what do we have? What data point do we have to reference? Well, we have that they actually played Duke last year and they lost to Duke by 3 points, right? And it was due to injuries, and Duke would have lost that game last year. Well, guess what? They end up playing Duke again, but it was in the Final Four, and Duke had a better team, and they beat Duke this year by 3 points. So 2 things to note. They went further after that loss the previous year by 3 points in the Sweet 16. So they went further, and then they actually beat a better team. So if we use that data point, we can say that Houston made it all the way to the national title and lost by 2 points to Florida. And then so we could say that based on that, they'll get better and have the right pieces that they need to take them over the top to win a national title within the next year or so. Here's the thing. We have to get control of these referees, period, because they are working for the opposition team, and they're curving and swaying the victories in their favor because they're using the refs to change the momentum of the game. That's the same thing that happened with Arizona State. If you put the 2 and 2 together, there's something between when the Big 12 and the SEC play for these big matchups, the referees always end up swaying it towards the SEC. That's something to look into. I'm not kidding. There's something going on with the SEC and the refs whenever they're playing the Big 12. So that's cheating, of course, but there's something going on, and it needs to be looked into because this is the second time this happened this season. It got Arizona State to lose against Texas, and then it had Houston to lose against Florida. So there's something going on with the SEC and the Big 12, far as, like, of course, they're trying to destroy the Big 12. They're trying to they're cheating to stay relevant or above the Big 12, and we can't let that happen. So let's look at these officials. Whenever there's big games involved and they're playing against the SEC, we need to watch it because there's always cheating with the refs. So once again, thank you all for watching. That's the real reason why the University of Houston lost. the national title game by 2 points. It wasn't due to injuries. It was due to those two things. The referees set the tone and the momentum for these timeouts later in the game when Kelvin would have normally let him play it out. And so Houston should have won. They was once again cheated, but big accomplishments to the Cougars, and we're rooting for them moving forward in football and basketball, and the success moving forward. So once again, thank y'all for watching another video of How To with Master Vizay. Until next time, have a great day.